Hey everybody, it's GoblinoX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another quick draft of Outlaws of Thunder Junction, just hanging out with those quick draft bots while we still can. They are taking Outlaws of Thunder Junction quick drafts off of Arena next week. I think May 7th is when it flips over. Anyways, we're just going to hop right into the draft with a Great Bomb Rare. This is easily the best card in the pack. Ornery Tumblewag can get a bunch of +1/+1 counters onto your board and start doubling them up when it is saddled. So pretty excellent card, easily the best card, although I do like Unlicensed Hearse in some pretty slow, grindy, kind of more control-y decks and stuff, because this can be a great late-game win condition. The longer you survive and keep exiling cards with this, the bigger it gets. For pick 2, we have Prairie Dog and Magda, which are pretty solid off-color creatures. The Magda, if you're committing enough crimes, can potentially spit a dragon out later, which is really good, but green is probably the worst color at committing crimes, and we do really want to stay on green with Ornery Tumblewag. Alternatively, the Prairie Dog can synergize well with the Tumblewag, where these both have some +1/+1 counter synergies later in the game, but they're both really just about being really nice stat lines up front. The alternative is Dance of the Tumbleweeds to stick mono green here, but I kind of like going green-white +1/+1 counter nonsense with this Prairie Dog. Pick 3, now we can definitely just stick to green out of this pack. Beastbond Outcaster is an excellent value play. There's plenty of big green creatures in the format to easily draw a card when this hits the board. Paladin's alright as well, but Outcaster for the card draw is certainly better. And these are the strongest cards, so there's really no reason to look off-color even. Now for pick 4, there's a Stubborn Burrow Fiend, another excellent card to saddle up. Somewhat easy to get this to be like 4 power later in the game as well, so it could work really well with the Outcaster too. Big fan of that. Pick 5, there is a Dance of the Tumbleweeds for fixing, or we can take Frontier Seeker and lock in on green-white mounts. We already have a Stubborn Burrow Fiend and an Ornery Tumblewag for 2 mounts that this could draw into, and just drawing into a Plains is still pretty great value as well, so I think I'll roll with the Frontier Seeker. Pick number 6, there's a Cactarantula for a big green finisher you can find at common. Pick number 7, Voracious Varmint is a super fine filler card. If you end up against white, a lot of their removal spells happen to be enchantment-based, so blowing one of those up can be pretty nice. Do like the Festering Gulch here. Speculate on some random fixing or a crime land. It's also pretty importantly a desert to go with Cactarantula. Bucolic Ranch I haven't ran too often. I think you want a lot of mounts for this to be any good. Because you generally don't want to be throwing a bunch of mana into this thing if there's only like 1 mount in your deck. And also it's going to be a colorless land if you're not using it to cast mounts. But we are green-white, so maybe Ranch over Festering Gulch makes sense here. And it is a desert to go with Cactarantula still, so I guess we can go Ranch over Gulch. Maybe that'll work out fine. Pick 9, Tumbleweed Rising is actually really good with cheap creatures that can buff themselves up. So something like a Stubborn Burrow Fiend's kind of the perfect combo, where if you do saddle this up, this can randomly be like a 4/4 or a 5/5 till end of turn, and you can get a 2-mana 4/4 5/5 while still casting Tumbleweed Rising pretty early in the game, so do like that. Pick 10, Sterling Supplier is quite nice, but we could also take Conduit Pylons if we're really concerned about having more deserts for Cactarantula. Not really. I feel like we can find other big finishers if we need them. We're definitely not a Bandits Hall deck. We are committing like 0 crimes right now, so we'll take Conduit Pylons into Free Strider Commando, into Lava Spur Boots, and some more nonsense that we're not going to play. Pack 2, pick 1, we are pretty locked in here, so let's go for the Giant Beaver towards green-white mounts. Excellent card, and it synergizes well with a lot of what we've got going on, so we'll grab that over Duelist of the Mind if we wanted to try to go like blue-green instead. Pack 2, pick 2, another Tumbleweed Rising is okay. Raucous Entertainer is a card that has gone quite a bit down in my pick order lately, just because I find that you're pretty consistently curving out and using all your mana each turn where you don't have that extra mana left over to get those counters off of it. Pick number 3, there's a Bridled Bighorn, but we're also really low on removal, so we can go ahead and take Steer Clear for our first removal spell. Or we could get fixing and ramp off the bandit. That wouldn't be bad either. We are on actual factual 100% creatures right now. 0 removal spells, so we're going to grab the kind of mediocre steer clear removal. Pick number 4, there's a trained Erranx for one of the best, most aggressive mounts, nice and early on the curve. Fill that out, make sure we are curving out nice and aggressively here. So I'll take Erranx over Paladin. Those are the 2 cards really competing there. Pick number 5. Could splash in back for more off of like conduit pylons. Maybe get a green-black desert later. But we can also just stick to taking more mounts like Drover Grizzly. It's got the mount card type, which is excellent, and it's a cheap 4-power creature to go with the Outcaster, so I'll actually take the Grizzly. Pick number 6, we can take another Grizzly, but we still have a very low non-creature count, so I'm going to take another Steer Clear. Now pick 7, we get another Giant Beaver. That's pretty excellent. Naturalist is really nice for grindier decks that have some good self-mill synergies, and we have a tiny bit with Stubborn Burrow Fiend, but I think we would just prefer just large stat lines for the mana value like Giant Beaver here. Alright, still low on non-creature spells, so full steam ahead is a perfectly playable finisher if we don't find other action to keep our board state pretty relevant later. It's a little narrow. It's only going to be good. Like, when you're ahead, or when at least you're racing each other, it's not going to be bad when you're behind and you're on the defensive and you need to be blocking stuff, so it can be awkward, but when it wins the game, it really wins the game. Alright, let's get moving into pack number 3. I don't think we're going to find any more playables here in the end of pack 2. Alright. Pack 3, pick 1. Take Up the Shield and Snakeskin Veil are both really nice. Take Up the Shield is better in an aggressive mirror match where the game's a lot about creature combat. This is going to help you win a race with all that lifelink. And it's just going to crush in creature-based matchups, but Snakeskin Veil is better when we're up against a more controlling deck that has a lot of removal. So it really depends what we're up against. I feel like generally you tend to run up against a bit more creature-heavy decks, so I'm going to go for the Take Up the Shield here, at least just in like the ranked queues. Until you get like really high mythic, then players do enjoy trying to go for that more controlling nonsense more often, so I'll Take Up the Shield. I think it's slightly better in the general meta. But if we can have one of each, that's perfect. So now we can take a Snakeskin Veil here over nothing else very good on color. Mainly over trying to splash in a double red Terror of the Peaks, which would be difficult. Pick 3. Now we have a Clear Shot for more removal. This is really excellent removal. I'm very happy to take that over Holy Cow or Paladin. Pick 4 is nothing. Yeah, pretty much nothing. I'm definitely not going to play 2 copies of Full Steam Ahead, nor am I going to play an Armadillo, so I'll take a reach for this guy. I guess I could take a White Desert just for another desert, but I don't think so. Pick 5, another Free Strider Commando, another Steer Clear. Not much else. I feel like I'm going to cut either of those, so I'll just rare draft an uncommon for Vault Progress. Pick 6, random combat trick to try to kill somebody with, sure. Certainly not defensive enough to want the destroy tapped creatures removal. I think Clear Shot, double Steer Clear is already going to be better than Lullaby here. Pick 7, we do still get a Spinewoods Paladin, that's very nice, super beefy card. Now pick 8. I actually like Stagecoach Security a little bit better than a Cactarantula here, because I don't love our Conduit Pylons in a 2-color deck, so I'm probably going to cut these, where this is going to play as a 6-drop most of the time. Does make it considerably weaker. Whereas the Stagecoach Security, we've got a lot of 2 and 3 mana creatures, so the +1/+1 Vigilance buff can do a lot of work. Now, random Anklebiter. Random Heartless Pillage for collection purposes. And let's wrap this deck up, or wrap this draft up. I think we've got the deck pre-built right here. We're just going to let Arena auto-suggest the lands, and this is an archetype we have played a lot because it's pretty easy to open up just busted green and white rares and end up in that direction, and we have yet again. So very simple, very self-explanatory deck. The mana base builds itself. The deck built itself during the draft. We're just going to hop right into the gameplay and see how this deck does. Here we are on the play for game 1. Pretty happy with the hand. Turn 2, we're going to play a 3-1. Turn 3, we'll play a 3-3. And then we start running out some 4-4s from then on. Could be really sweet. Okay. I'm not that interested in holding up a steer clear. I could plot Tumbleweed Rising instead if I want to make it a 4-4 instead of a 3-3, but I think I would rather just get the Summoning Sickness out of the way to full resolve it. And then I also get to scry off of the attack by doing that. Yep, and we get to scry that full steam ahead to the bottom to try to make sure we hit land number 4, because that'll be really important here. We are playing against Sultai, so probably a more controlling, slower deck. There's the Stable Master from them, and we did miss the land, which is not good. Do I need the land badly enough to saddle up the Erranks with this 3-3? Probably not. I actually think I need the land badly enough, though, to just cast an Outcaster without drawing a card to scry off of this. I think this is going to be a matchup that is determined by how fast we can get damage into our opponent's face. So we just want to keep committing power and toughness to the board, even if it misses losing some late game card advantage. We want to beat down and try to kill them while they still have like 7 cards in their hand, rather than trying to out card them over time. They're going to have more card draw and graveyard recursion and stuff than us, for sure. They are stuck on 3 lands as well. Do I hold up a steer clear here and play a giant beaver post-combat? I don't hate it. This could get them to commit some mana into removal. And then they don't get to have a counterspell up here if they do have the blue and a 1 counter unless we pay 2 card. Consuming Ashes. Yeah, there we go. Sure. Get your Surveil. We'll trade into the Stable Master and get a 4-4 Vigilance down. We've got a 3-3 and a 4-4 on board from here. Which is significant damage against somebody at 8 life. That'll put them down to 1 if we can get it all in. Voracious Varmint for a 2-2 blocker, and that's it. Snakeskin Veil looks like it should be an excellent card in this matchup. So, pretty happy with that draw. Since we're both stuck on mana here, though, it's not like I can hold it up particularly easily. But I do get to hold it up when I'm, like, moving into combat. I just don't get to have it up during their turn. And it looks like it doesn't matter. They do not hit enough lands to blow up our creatures fast enough. And we will just roll in for lethal. We are now 1-0 heading into game 2. Here we are for game 2 on the draw. We've got the Burrow Fiend to get rolling in with. Outcaster looks a little awkward here because we probably don't want to play it slow. Well, there we go. Never mind. Outcaster looks perfectly fine because we found a different card to play turn 3, and it's an excellent one. The Ornery Tumblewag. Make our Burrow Fiend disgustingly large the first time it attacks. It's going to have a +1/+1 counter and a temporary +1/+1, maybe +2/+2 if they don't kill it. They are a red deck, and there's a lot of cheap red burn in this format. Red has played out to be one of the weaker colors in the set just because of how many good big green creatures there are that red's not great at killing. But they're still really good at killing little Burrow Fiends and stuff. Alright, Crom is also pretty threatening, but I think we still need to roll out the Tumblewag here. It's not like I have direct interaction or anything. I would just have to pray they block, holding up a take up the shield. Which doesn't feel likely. Green and white are kind of the most combat trick oriented colors in the format because take up the shield and snakeskin veil are both pretty good, so I don't think our opponent would ever block with their Crom. Considering it should be relatively easy for them to cast 2 spells next turn. The Hard Bristle Bandit untaps when they use a removal spell, so they've got like 6 mana up next turn if they just go removal spell into creature. And that is going to be the play. There's Clear Shot into... Drover Grizzly, yep. Removal spell into creature, trigger the Crom, draw a card, massive threat on board. And they've got that card draw engine just rolling. It's probably going to draw their extra card next turn as well. And we miss our land drop. Things are looking really bad right now. I think our best bets... Probably full control. Is Saddle Sorcery Speed? Oh, it is Sorcery Speed. Dang it. That's rough. If we could cast the Outcaster and then Saddle before its ability resolves, we could make the Burrow Fiend power 4 greater to draw the Outcaster card, but since we can't, we don't get to draw an Outcaster card right now. Which is kind of devastating because it means we guaranteed miss a land drop. I guess we have to just probably hit as hard as possible and saddle up rather than try to get a take up the shield trade into the Grizzly. It's just not going to happen. Boom, put them down to 11. Outlaw's Fury. Get a land off the top, cast another spell, draw a card off Crom. This could just be lethal right now, honestly. It's 14 damage already. They just need +2/+2 or 2 damage to our face. Alright, Jolene is not lethal. But still tremendously close. Down to 4 life. Well, we hit a land, but we've drawn like just 5 drops in our opening hand that already had a 5 and a 6, so still means I cast 1 spell. Just only take up the shield, and it is not enough. If I saddle up the Burrow Fiend, it will be 6 power, maybe? Like, it's 5 naturally. If we mill another creature, it'll be 6. So I could gain 6 or 7 off of take up the shield, be at 10 or 11, have 1 blocker, we block there, take like 8, 9, Jolene throws treasures at us for like 2. But the problem here is if I just pass turn, they can attack with only Crom and I die. The only way I don't die, really, is if I pass turn and they attack with everybody, but that feels pretty unlikely. I think if I pass, they just send in only Crom and we die, period. So, like, is there a play where we attack with one of these, gain 4, and then hold up 1 blocker? So that way I'm at 8, so they don't kill me with exclusively Crom. And I block there. No, I'm at 8 and I take 8. Yeah, the only way we're alive is if our opponent plays into the take up the shield. It's Prickly Pear. Whole board has trample now. Might just be dead even with take up the shield when you think of that. They've got the mana to shoot 1 treasure wherever they want. So let's see. We go like that. This is taking 4, 5, 6, 7 but I gain 4. Yeah, I technically survive this. If they have any instant in their hand, it's probably lethal. Shoot the face, untap the bandit. Oh, that's right. Bandit gets to untap here, so they get to throw both treasures at me. I think I still survive? I don't know. I mean, our best play is take up the shield on Burrow Fiend either way, so let's just see how the math looks. Oh, exact seas. Rough. Alright, well, not much we could do there. Just some rough draws. We started with a 5 and a 6 drop in the opener, so we were looking to draw some more lands. I think it was still a really reasonable keep. I mean, we had an excellent like 2 mana and 3 mana play, and another 3 mana play that we drew into. But we just drew more 5 mana cards, so couldn't commit enough to the board to not die pretty quickly there. Or at least to try to race more. If we had just a little bit more threats, they were at 11 and we could have threatened to attack for like 7 and gain 7 maybe, had we had more creatures in the opener, so I don't know. Nothing we could really do there. We are 1-1 heading into game 3. Oh, this hand's super bad. We've got a lot more 2 and 3 drops than we've seen the last couple games. We definitely got a mulligan. There's a 2 drop. Oh, if I ditch the steer clear, we can flood out really easily, but if I ditch a land, I could see a repeat of last game where we just draw a bunch of 5 drops, but I mean, that's not that likely. Starting with 3 lands already, we don't need any more for anything in the current hand. Yeah, I probably shouldn't keep 4 lands there. Like, the only reason to do that would just be because monkey brain stuff. Like, the human brain is just like correlating things that are unrelated. Of like, well, last game I drew a bunch of 5 drops, so I would have wanted more lands. Like, well, that doesn't mean you're going to draw a bunch of 5 drops this game. You only got like 3 in the deck. By 3, I mean 4. We've got 4 or 5 mana creatures. The Phantom Interference on the Prairie Dog, so no saddling for the Burrow Fiend. Oh, this is rough. Definitely don't like mulliganing against the blue-black control deck that is a card advantage-oriented archetype, where we want to have as many cards as possible, so just starting immediately down a card is quite bad. Just get rid of Satoru so they don't draw like a million extra cards off of that. And this gives us some time to wait, see if we can top deck one of our 4/4s or 5/4s or something before we cast our Tumbleweed Rising. That's a no. Still think I want to plot this rather than play it as a 2/2. Because even if I just top deck a 2/2 or something, I can saddle the Burrow Fiend and at least make a 3/3 off of Tumbleweed Rising. Get rid of the lifelinker to keep them lower on life. Well, awkward draws. Our opponent doesn't look to be doing much better. At least. Just a bunch of counter spells and removal spells. They just don't want to kill the Burrow Fiend, so now they kill the Tumblewag. Pretty good for them. Oh, I should have saddled. I guess against a Gigapede, it doesn't really matter now. Although it would matter for Tumbleweed Rising, but it would trade either way. Yeah, I missed the saddle. That was pretty bad, because then I could Tumbleweed Rising the same turn, which would be kind of a big deal. But instead, I think we just pass. I think Tumbleweed Rising is important enough to not lose the Burrow Fiend without having a big creature on board for Rising. Okay, here's an Erynx to play. Counter it, put a counter on Gigapede? Sure, that means Burrow Fiend is even bigger. 5/5. Not quite big enough to attack into the Gigapede. There's our 5/5 from Tumbleweed Rising. And this only triggers when it becomes saddled for the first time each turn, so I can't do it again by saddling with the elemental token. Alright. And keep spreading the love around. Now I've got a 4/4 and a 5/5. And they're over it. Alright, I guess they flooded out a little bit in the end there. And the Tumblewag's just going to keep doing Tumblewag things. And we are now 2-1, heading into game 4. Here we are on the play for game number 4. We don't have a green source. That is a pretty big flaw. That could be cause for a mulligan. But I really like turn 2 Prairie Dog, and especially where if we hit the green source, we have 2 different plot spells. That makes the Prairie Dog incredible. Oh my god, how on earth do we draw double planes there? When we've already drawn 3 planes, that makes the odds of drawing a forest already quite a bit higher than drawing planes. And then we hit 2 planes. So now the odds of drawing a forest over planes are drastically higher. But we don't get there. Red-white here feels like anything that would kill the Prairie Dog would kill it, whether or not it's attacking or blocking. I guess if they have a steer clear, that won't kill the Prairie Dog unless I send it in. Yeah, this is a really important card. And if they have removal that's going to kill it when I declare the attack, they just kill it either way. Yeah. Alright. It's not good. Still think all we need to stabilize is a single forest. We just drop a paladin and we're stable. That is not a single forest, though. Gross. The 2-for-1 removal of the sharpshooter. Kill our creature and get a 3/3. Well, Sand was a little bit of a gamble for sure. But we did get mega punished. Wow. And the counter to stop the steer clear. R.I.P. I get the memo. I get the message, Arena. I'll move on to the next game. Here we are now for game number 5, and this could be an awkward hand again. We really want to draw some lands. We've drawn a lot of our high mana value spells here. But we do have really nice plays off of just 2 mana. Even if we don't hit another land, we can plot the Outcaster. We have hit 1 land now. At least play Commando next turn. Can we hit any of our cheap removal? Any of our steer clears for the Miriam? I guess even if we do, we lose, because Miriam doesn't have to attack to just snowball and steamroll us here. +1/+1 counter on any of their mounts every time they attack. Well, yep, no removal in the opener, and we are on the draw. Feels like getting steamrolled by Miriam. But let's get some scry. I want to scry really badly. The problem with that is if I do, I'm completely tapped out, so they know they can just hit me for 8 and put me to 8 life. I think I need to hold a blocker up to stop Miriam from swinging back. Even though like no amount of blockers is blocking an Erynx. So we don't really need to hold up any blockers because of the Erynx. We just need to hold up a blocker to make sure Miriam isn't attacking as well. The Miriam Airing's snowball continues, and we're having a terrible time. That is not removal, so it doesn't matter much. It's probably our best play still, right? Because we could potentially have a 4-power creature on board thanks to that, to try to draw another card off Outcaster to find removal. I guess the biggest argument against it is I could tap out for Outcaster, so if I do top deck a Forest, I can play 2 creatures in 1 turn. Try to get a wide enough board state to block everything, but again, Trained Arynx is basically a 2-mana, 6-power indestructible attacker at this point. So, I don't know, like, we need an insanely wide board to do anything about that. I guess there's merits to either way, but let's go for maximum power toughness on board here. Go for the Outcaster, so if we hit another land, we can double up with 2 blockers next turn, thanks to these both being 2-mana cards. I mean, maybe if we go for maximum width, the maximum number of creatures, we eventually get to a random full steam ahead kill, but probably not. And Prosperity Tycoon means we're trading into a 1-1 if we block Tycoon, because it can sack it for indestructible. But I'll trade my 3-1 into a 1-1. That'll stop Tycoon from getting in from this point on. And rather than mana, we hit a 5-mana spell. Such is the way of Magic for us today. Alright, well, that's 3 3/3s in a dream. We have to chump block Arynx now. Oh, great. Menace Trample, that's just lethal. If I double block that, I only have 1 other blocker to put anywhere else, and we died everything else. Well, brutal stuff here. I don't think this deck was particularly bad, but just everything has rolled out as poorly as possible. We have hit some really bad draws against some really good draws. Yeah, again, looking at our mana curve here, is not as high as it seemed. It's a little high for like green-white aggro here. Like this is maybe a little much 5 drops, but I feel like 2 of our losses, we drew like every single one of these cards. I guess I didn't draw Cactarantula, but I had Supplier, Paladin, and Full Steam Ahead there with like 3 lands. And our other loss, we had Cactarantula and Paladin in the opener. And it was like a 2-lander with 2 good 2-drops, and then we drew Supplier and Stagecoach Security, so like we just clumped up almost every single 5-mana play in multiple of our losses when we were stuck on mana, so that's just some variance stuff for you. Yeah, again, I don't think this deck was incredible. I don't think it was as bad as it did, though. Just a 2-3 here. We just had some real awkward clumps on those draws, and that is going to happen to the best of decks, so pretty like solid average deck, I would say somewhere around the 4-3, 5-3 on average. Gets the lower end of the variance spectrum, and we are out of the event at 2-3 today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTubers for supporting the channel, as well as you for watching the video. If you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.